On today's show, we are getting ready for the Predators' new season with some preseason plus minus. What are the biggest storylines we're looking forward in training camp, and what are the biggest concerns we have about this team? We'll break it down today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day, every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, available to you wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start out with a special how do you do to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you and we appreciate the support you give us week after week. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and finally, after a week or so, I have a partner in crime back.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at the Hockey News Predators site, InsideThePreds.com.
You look like you have been enjoying the sun for the past week or so.
Oh my gosh. As I was saying to you, we just don't typically vacation. And now the children are out of the house and very bitter that we just spent some time at a resort on the beach. And I'm so good at that. I was made to sit on the beach all day long at a resort. Wow.
Yeah,
Totally
not waiting on kids.
No.
Instead having the staff wait on you, hand and foot.
Yeah, it was amazing. But I am happy to be back and with very little time to spare, because if you look at the calendar, it's almost there, Nick. It's just right there. We are so close to the beginning of the season and training camp. And oh my goodness, there is still a lot to figure out about this Nashville Predators team, y'all.
Exactly. We're going to try today with, for the first time this year, plus minus. If you listen during the regular season, you know how this works. We usually give pluses to the things that we like about the team, minuses to things that need improvement. So what we're going to do today is kind of take that and apply that to storylines going into the Predators training camp preseason. Basically, when stuff starts up here over the next week or so, what we're looking forward to, things that we like about the team, we're going to give pluses to, minuses, maybe some concerns or question marks we have about the team. So, Ann, as we do always, let's start with the plus. What is a plus that you're looking forward to when training camp starts for the Nashville Predators?
One of the things that I am excited about this season, just right out of the gate, because one of these is going to actually happen potentially right out of the gate, is the Nashville Predators are going to be celebrating some player milestones. And I am really looking forward to this. The quickest one that we could reach comes from a new Predator, Ryan O'Reilly. He is glimpsing at 1,000 career games. He's at 991 games. So we are looking at celebrating on October 31st, if he hits it right out of the gate, 1,000 career games for Ryan O'Reilly. Later on in the season, if he stays healthy, Luke Schenn could hit that millennium mark as well. He's at 933 games. So we're going to need him to stay healthy and stay in it to hit that. But I'm really excited about especially this Ryan O'Reilly right out of the gate one. But here is what we need to make it special. We need Ryan O'Reilly in those first 9 games to be a huge impact player for the Nashville Predators, because if he is, he will so quickly have this fan base invested in his success. It will be way more fun to celebrate 1,000 games when he's played 9 really, really good ones for the Predators instead of we're still waiting on you. So for me, Ryan O'Reilly's a big one to watch right out of the gate. Excited about this 1,000 NHL game milestone, but let's hit it out of the gate with a bang, Ryan O'Reilly. I'm really looking forward to what he can do and what he can do right away.
Yeah, that's I feel like a lot of those milestones, especially for Ryan O'Reilly, are going to hit a little bit different.
Yeah.
He's come out to a hot start. Remember, like the Matt Duchene start when he first signed.
Yeah.
He was just having this insane, um, like this just insane stat line for the first little bit.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe that'll hit better. Ryan O'Reilly is, I think, kind of figures into one thing I'm really looking forward to, and
Okay.
one of the biggest pluses I have, and that's competition.
Oh, come
The
on now.
competition in
Mhm.
training camp is going to be fascinating to watch. You look at some of these position groups, and we'll start on defense because I think that's like the biggest one
Mhm.
that's circled. Look at the players that you have on defense. You have Roman Yossi,
Come on.
you have Jeremy Lauzon, you have Dante Fabbro, Alexandre Carrier, Tyson Berry, Luke Shen, and Ryan McDonagh. Those are
Yep.
7 regular players, and
Mhm.
if you haven't been able to tell, and most teams play 6 defensemen
Yeah.
every night. So right out of the bat, you're going to have some guys like Jeremy Lauzon and maybe Alex Carey and maybe Dante Fabbro having to fight for their spots and kind of prove that they are ready to be kind of the guys that take this team to the next level. So I'm excited for that. There's going to be it's going to be fascinating to see like what the defense winds up doing. And then up front, Anne, there's 2 ways you can look at that. You have all of these young players, and Pete stepping up, like Luke Evangelista and Phil
Yeah.
Tomasino, maybe Joachim Kamel out there in the fringe. And based on the offseason signings for the Nashville Predators, only a handful of spots. I know a lot of people are saying, like, oh, signing somebody like Gustav Nyquist is going to plug up a hole and keep somebody from getting an opportunity. No, it's going to
Mhm.
force somebody
That's right.
like a Luke Evangelista or Phil Tomasino to take that spot to have.
Yes.
Yeah, there are enough spots. Like let's get that out of the way. Based on the way Andrew Brunette plays, there are going to be spots available for young players. It's going to be up to them to compete and
Come on.
see who's good enough to go and grab the reins.
I love what you're saying there because I think it's a big difference for the Nashville Predators. And I'm not, as I say what I'm going to say, I'm not throwing shade or anything. So I don't want people to extrapolate anything more out of this than simply what I'm saying. But if you look back at last preseason, especially when it comes to offense, did some of those players really have competition? No. You look at players like Matt Duchene, like Ryan Johansson, those are players who really didn't have to compete. And that's just the truth of it, based on their talent level, based on the roster that the Predators had. And when you don't have that element of, I better get it in gear and compete, you lose something.
Right.
And so I like that there's that vibe this year. I think it's going to help the Nashville Predators get where they want to be quicker. I love the fact that players have to take it.
Yeah.
Nothing's given to anybody this season. New head coach, new roster, young players, veteran players. Nothing's going to be given to anybody. Players are going to have to earn it.
Yeah. And maybe there is one maybe caveat that we didn't see last year. If a player does earn it, you have to make sure they have that spot. You have to make sure you give them the spot.
Yeah.
You can't have somebody blow everybody away in camp and be like, "Oh, that's cool. We have a guy who's waivers exempt. He's waivers exempt. This guy's not. So
Yeah.
even though he probably would have won a spot, we're gonna send him to the minors anyway.
Yeah.
That can't happen.
No, that ruins some of the vibe. That's
Yeah,
a mood kill.
but I also kind of get the feeling that the Predators maybe aren't going to be in that sort of business this
Yeah.
season. So that's positive.
Let's hope.
what are some concerns we have about the team going into training camp? We're going to tackle those in just 1 second. But first, I want to mention today's episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Football season, oh, it's finally here,
Come
folks.
on.
And you may have been on the beach, but I was glued to my couch all weekend, and I think we are both just content with our life choices.
Yeah.
Football season is finally here in FanDuel, giving you a chance to win all season long. And that's because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. For instance, if you pick the Titans to win the Super Bowl, more power to you, friend. But anytime the Titans win, you'll get a bonus bet for every victory. And those are bonus bets you can use on spreads, to player props. How many, yards is Derrick Henry going to have in a game, or catches is DeAndre Hopkins going to have? Over-unders for point totals, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right, and we are talking about preseason plus minus, talking about some of the exciting things and concerns for the Nashville Predators as we head into training camp. We talked about some pluses, and what's maybe a concern you have about this team?
I'm going to take one of your pluses, which I agree with, but I'm going to look at kind of the concern that I have about it. And that comes down to the Predators defense. And I feel like when we look at this defensive roster, it feels a little bit like a cooking show, in the sense that, like, there's a host who says you have a kiwi, you have a hot dog, and you have a chocolate truffle. Make me something delicious.
So chopped.
They're
chopped.
Yes. Like, that's what this feels like. Because look, I love a kiwi, I love a hot dog, and I love a chocolate truffle. But how do you put those together into something that I'm going to be like, yeah. And that's a little bit where I'm at with this defense. And I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I think that it's going to be a project, kind of like what we saw last year, bringing in Ryan McDonagh, where the Matthias Ekholm-McDonagh thing didn't quite work out. How are you going to take these quality defensemen that you have? And you mentioned we've got 7 regular playing quality defensemen on the roster. That's not counting like Jake Livingstone. That's not counting Spencer Stastny or Jordan Gross, who, we saw last season. But how are you going to put that together into a defense that's going to do what the Predators will need it to do? Quality players. Yeah. But how do you combine them? And that, for me, is one of my biggest concerns for the Nashville Predators. Not that they can't land there, but how long will it take? And pulling out one player in particular, one of my bigger concerns is Alexandre Carrier. Mm-hmm. Love this guy. I love his play. I love what he brings, offensively when he can get in the mix. I like what we see from him defensively. But that was back in 21-22. We just didn't see enough last season. Can he stay healthy? And is that who he is? So it goes back to, there are just some questions about this defense that I really want to get nailed down in the preseason. Don't know that we're going to be able to do it in preseason, but let's see what kind of a meal Andrew Brunette can make out of this.
Yeah. Alexandre Carrier, 1-year contract, $2.5 million. Dante Fabbro, 1-year contract, $0.25 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because you also have Tyson Barrie on an expiring contract, and it just the conventional wisdom says that he's going to be traded at some point this year, just because he's a very, very good trade chip, especially if he plays as well as he did last year. Yeah. But Carrier versus Fabbro, on that right side, 1-year deals.
It's tough.
It just feels like it's going to wind up being one or the other, Anne.
It does.
And maybe this is the year that, lets Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette know, okay, like, this is a guy who we're going to go all in with, It just feels that way. There's a lot of people out there that, are maybe will disagree with me a little bit. And I hope I'm proven wrong because I think I like both people as players and I think
Sure.
both offer something good. But I don't know, just everything about what the Predators have done, this offseason, the way they've kind of handled these two, it just feels like, the Harry Potter Voldemort prophecy where one is going to have to kill the other one. Neither can live while the other survives.
Oh my
Uh,
God. It does
maybe,
though.
maybe they won't kill each other. Maybe one will just get traded at the deadline.
But it does feel like that, doesn't it? Like there is pressure to sort that out, those two defensemen out, and it's a 1-year deal to figure out who it is. And I'm like, man, you got to be really careful with that because 2 seasons from now, Nashville may be going, man, wish we would have kept him. So I agree with you. I think that is a very tricky. I'm not sure I'm going to go quite as far as like Voldemort, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That was dark for a Monday, but yeah, there is something there. There is something there between those two, and it's a little nerve wracking.
Yeah, especially because Luke Shen is also right-handed shot,
Yes.
and he's locked in. And
Yeah.
I mean, the Predators are going to have some roster decisions, especially if somebody like Jake Livingstone
Right.
proves to be as solid as he was, or somebody like Jack Mateer comes in and impresses in Milwaukee early on. So the
Yeah,
Predators might have some choices there.
they do.
My minus, Anne,
Mhm.
aka one of my biggest concerns, maybe my biggest concern for this team overall, is where is the offense going to
agree.
come from?
Yeah.
Like that's just my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, here's the thing. Andrew Brunette is a very offensively gifted coach. If you haven't heard our interview with Armando from Locked On Panthers talking about, kind of what Preds fans can expect from Andrew Brunette, listen to it and then see if you're not hyped for it. The dude was talking about, oh, well, he's kind of all out offense. And I, kind of saying it like, oh, maybe sometimes, they're not defensively responsible. And, I said, buddy, you had me at all out offense.
Like this is not a bad selling point to Nashville.
Yeah, you're not talking us out of anything.
No,
Right?
no.
So, I mean, it's conventional wisdom to say maybe you can get, some stronger production out of Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg.
Mhm.
But who else on this team is kind of going to be that next guy, that number 2 scorer? I mean, look, there's Ryan O'Reilly, but this isn't the same O'Reilly from, a few years ago when he was winning the Conn Smythe. He's
Right.
admittedly lost a little bit of speed, still very useful in other areas. But if you're expecting Ryan O'Reilly to fill the gap and be a 70-point guy, that's maybe not ideal. And then there's Gustav Nyquist, his best scoring days are behind him. You had Luke Shen have, a decent kind of offensive pop from the type of player he is, but is that going to be sustainable?
Right.
And then you look at the young players and it's just they haven't really proven anything yet. Tommy Novak had that big season, but it was 1 season. Is it sustainable for him to be that same type of player? Is Evangelista and Tomasino going to be ready enough to sort of be, 60-point guys and fill in some of the scoring production? You look at all the players the Predators have lost, not just this offseason with Duchesne and Johansson, but, you traded away Mikael Granlund at the trade deadline. You traded away Matthias Ekholm, who is always good for like 30 points a year. Tanner Jeannot, who had 24 goals a couple seasons ago. And then Nino Niederreiter, a consistent 20-goal scorer. So I'm just looking at this team being like, is there enough right now to kind of fill in those scoring gaps?
Yeah. And I think you have to look at the offense the Predators lost because you got rid of Matt Duchesne, who was your highest goal scorer with 22 goals, y'all. Let that sink in. The Nashville Predators only scored 223 goals last season. Duchesne and Johansson combined for 44 goals. So you've gotten rid of 2 guys who were offensively productive for you. And, that does, I mean, we will have to tackle what that means for the power play another day. But you've lost kind of your offensive spark players, and you've got to get some people to step in. And I agree with you. I think Tommy Novak shows a tremendous amount of promise. I'm still on vacation in my mind. He shows so much promise. But again, that was one season. I think what the Predators are going to have to do if they're going to be successful offensively, I don't think that they're going to have, short of Philip Forsberg, an outrageously amazing, productive offensive player. I think Philip Forsberg is going to have to carry that load. That's a big responsibility for him. I think you need a number of 15 to 20 goal scorers. And can the Predators get that? They didn't have a lot of depth scoring last season. Can they get some depth scoring and that sort of carry the team this season? Because I don't know, like you said, who is going to replace Duchene's production? Cody Glass, don't know. Phil Tomasino, not sure. Luke Evangelista, could be, but we don't know that. So I agree with you. I think the biggest concern is, I love the idea of being an offensive focused team. It's something the Predators haven't been for a while, but who is going to benefit from that? Who is going to take a hold of that and run with it? Right now, Philip Forsberg is kind of your pretty woman, I'm a sure thing, but who else do you have? And it's a fair question.
Yeah. And not saying it can't happen, not saying that, no, we're not coming out and saying, oh, nobody's going to step up. The Preds are going to be screwed. We're just saying that is a big question mark,
right?
To have right now for the Nashville Predators. It's not all doom and gloom, though. There's a couple more positives we're looking forward to this camp. We're going to get to that in just a minute, but first, want to remind everybody that Locked On Predators is your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcast, platforms like Apple, Spotify, all the big ones. You can also find us on YouTube. So wherever you're listening right now, be sure to hit that subscribe button. All right, Ann, we're doing preseason plus minus for storylines we are excited about and maybe a little timid about regarding the Nashville Predators. Close us out with another thing that you are excited to see this training camp.
I am excited to get back and see Juuse Saros in net. Look, everybody here in Nashville knows what we have in Juuse Saros. Some people across the league are starting to acknowledge the fact that Juuse Saros was the secret sauce for the Nashville Predators over these last couple of seasons. But what I like about what this season could hold for Saros is all of the things that have masked what is not all of the things, but a lot of the things that have masked how vital he is are gone. We've lost Matthias Ekholm defensively. We've lost Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, kind of these offensive guys. And I think this is going to be the season where the league recognizes just how incredibly talented and vital Juuse Saros is. Not just Vezina, although let me tell you right now, he's going to be a Vezina finalist. But I am excited to see Juuse Saros earn some more heart votes. Now, it's Connor McDavid's to lose. We all know that. Yeah. We all know that. But I think this is the season where the league is finally going to understand Juuse Saros is elite. Elite goaltending. And I don't think there's anything, there's lots of other good things that are going to happen for the Nashville Predators, but Juuse Saros is going to be the ticket to this team's success. And I'm excited for everybody in the NHL to finally see it and acknowledge it this season.
It feels like we've been kind of one way talking about Juuse Saros for so long here in Nashville. And it's kind of makes us almost second guess. And it's wait, is Juuse Saros really this good? Nobody else seems to be talking with him. Are we just kind of blinded because we're Nashville Predators fans?
Right.
So the other day on Locked On NHL, Seth Tupal and I were ranking Western Conference goalies. And I was just I have Connor Hellebuyck number 1. Juuse Saros is number 2, but let me tell you about Juuse Saros. And then he had to stop and be like, "Oh no, I'm with you. I have Juuse Saros as my number 1."
Let's
So
go.
it kind of feels like, okay, maybe the rest of the Locked On NHL crew, they did put Juuse Saros in their top 5 goalies. So maybe it feels like he's starting to catch on a little bit, and maybe his reputation is kind of spreading around.
Yeah. I think it's time that the league sees what he can do. We've talked all last season about the advanced stats. We've talked all last season about these are the things that he's able to keep this team in games for. Hopefully the Predators as a whole will correct some of those things. We talked about finding guys to generate some offense. But it's time for the league to see that Juuse Saros is Vezina worthy and Hart Trophy vote worthy.
Right.
I want to see it.
I'm with you, Ann. I'm kind of excited just to see that as well. The last thing I want to give a plus to, something I'm excited about. Look, we've talked about maybe questions about Andrew Brunette. We've talked about maybe some questions over Barry Trotz's long strategy. But the fact that we're even having this conversation, Ann,
Come
is a
on.
big plus.
It's so great.
It is a new era for the
Mhm.
Nashville Predators. And you just kind of get the feeling around this fan base that it's refreshing just to kind of have new blood in there.
Gosh, yeah.
All the way to the top. We've had the same kind of voices leading this team for 25 years, and David Poile deserves all of the credit he gets.
Yes.
But the fact that there's a new idea, maybe a new strategy, a new way of doing things, from Barry Trotz all the way down to the coaching staff with Andrew Brunette to some new players in the locker room, it just feels like maybe not this year, but soon we'll be able to kind of say, this isn't the same Nashville Predators. There's a new identity brewing here. And I think that is something that the fan base desperately needed.
Yes.
It feels like there's a new energy, there's new blood around this team for the first time, really in probably the couple of years after the Stanley Cup Finals run. It just really feels like you get that buzz again around Smashville. And I'm excited for it. I'm happy for it. We just needed something, Ann. Something to get this fan base going after maybe some tense times around the fan base. We get that with what happened this offseason. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. I think there's something really life-giving about looking at this team and not hoping to reclaim old magic, but develop new magic. I think there's just something so exciting about the fact that this team finally gets to look ahead. For years, we've been looking back and saying, we're going to get back to that 2017 stuff. We're relying on this core that used to perform really well. There is something really exciting about even being able to say it might not happen this year, might not happen next season, but we're looking ahead. This franchise is looking ahead for the first time in a long time. And I agree with you. It feels great. It's about going from Aaron Burr in Hamilton, where he talks about I'm not standing still, I'm lying in wait. That's kind of how the Predators were playing, to going to become Alexander Hamilton, who's I'm not throwing away my shot. It's two totally different vibes.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Hamilton dies in the end, but eventually Aaron Burr dies.
By Aaron Burr, yes.
By Aaron Burr. But, we're only going to take the analogy so far. But there is something that feels really exciting about where the Predators are. And it doesn't have to do with how the season ends necessarily. It's about where they're going. And man, does it feel nice.
Yeah, maybe Fabbro and Carrier are the better Burr and Hamilton reference.
Yeah.
Considering one has to die.
One has to die.
One has to die.
Both are talented, but one has to go.
Yeah. Look, we're both excited, I think, to get this training camp underway. Just excited to have some actual hockey to talk about, too.
It's going to be so great. Yeah, this is going to be a season that's going to have a lot to discuss. There's going to be a lot to talk about this season.
For sure. And we'll be there every step of the way, and plenty more this week as well. Ann, where can people find your work?
And you can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatevs, at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at penaltyboxradio.com. Follow me on X or whatever at _NS Morgan. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back later this week with all new episodes. We'll see you then.